One of the main reasons, obviously you guys who were in here yesterday know, one of the main reasons why I wanted Lana on is just because the way in which she handles the kind of production aspect of shoots is, well, it's astounding. It's the way in which I think most shoots should be handled. The kind of, obviously I mentioned in yesterday's stream, a lot of time with porn shoots, your interaction with consent is a consent form with what you're going to be doing written on it, and obviously that's useful because you get to tick off what you're doing and see what you're doing and what the other person's consented to doing in the scene. But it feels very impersonal, and obviously by having us sat down actually having that conversation and recording that conversation, going through the form together and the questions together, it's fun. It makes it way more personal. It's more impactful, I think, as well.
Oh, totally. I mean, the big thing for me is, like, and I didn't know this, like, I used to do just, from my sets, I used to do just, like, the tick thing because that's what I was used to. And that was my brain going, okay, well, the consent's done, we've discussed it. But we hadn't discussed it, we've filled in a form.
Yeah.
And a big thing that, like, I learned about recently and did it with our last shoot was, like, don't phrase it as a tick box, have it as an actual discussion. And also, I think people are less distracted and they're actually listening to each other's responses rather than thinking, like, I know I've been on sets where they're giving me the form and I'm, like, trying to listen to what's going on around me, but I'm also thinking, like, keep up with this fucking form, and, like, I don't read that fast. No. So it's, like, and so I feel like having it as, like, more of a discussion, because I don't think everything's, like, a yes-no answer as well.
I was literally about to say that. Yeah, there's it's a spectrum, isn't it? Yeah.
So a big thing for me is, like, spanking. I don't mind being spanked, but there is a limit to how hard I want to be spanked, or, like, certain areas of my body might be off limits for spanking, whereas if the box is just spanking yes or no, there's no real chance for me to...
No.
And then the other thing as well as having it as a discussion is, because you could very easily have, I've had sets before where it's like a tick box, spanking, yes or no, and then there's a little box next to it to say any details, any areas, any safe words, things like that. But the problem is then is if I've ticked that off and then pass it to you, you might look at it and go, I don't really know what she means by that, and that's all you've got to go off. Whereas if you actually get, like, me and you sat down in a room and we have a back and forth conversation, then that's your opportunity then to go, okay, well, you've said you don't like it here or here, what about here that I might have
can you specify
about?
more? Yeah.
And it's just it's like a discussion. That's the important thing. Is it's not questions and answers. It should be a discussion.
Yeah.
It should be, like, not a negotiation, because I think that implies people are
bending boundaries.
But it is a negotiation of understanding, of trying to understand what the other person's saying and getting your opportunity to ask those questions.
Absolutely, and entirely. It's very, if by having it as a yes no question, it puts the definitive lines there where it's like choking, yes, spanking, yes. Well, the issue there again is, like you were saying, there's degrees of severity on all of those questions, and it changes as well. It changes throughout the day. It changes with who you're with. Nice to know these things are being done more in depth. Well,
I'm trying.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, if more producers did stuff the way that you do stuff, and the way that I did stuff when I was doing the production side of things, and the way I'd like to do stuff if I go back into that kind of stuff, it makes the whole industry a safer place because people feel like they can talk about the nuances of what it is that they are into in that scene.
Yeah.
And also that makes the scene feel more personal. Like, if I know for a fact that when I'm choking you or when I'm spanking you, I'm doing it the way that you want me to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than me having to think in my head. And this might just be because I work as a dom, so I'm always perceptive of those things. But if I've just got a tick box and it's got spanking yes, spitting yes, like choking yes, in my head I'm going to be thinking, okay, well, how does this person individually like those things to be done? Because all I know is that they've ticked that box.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to be in the moment, trying to focus on filming a porn scene, trying to stay hard for X amount of hours, or however long we're going for.
No easy feat.
No, and, like, at the same time, I'm also going, well, I've got to read her body language to make sure that I'm not going too hard or going too soft, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm having to work out all of that stuff that I wouldn't do in my personal life. In my personal life, I'd have had this discussion.
Yeah,
and I'd know these things. And
I think in your personal life, there's an element of trust and communication where that person could communicate, whereas in a porn scene, we have lines, we have very, like, what you see in porn isn't the consent discussion, which is a separate problem, but there's not really the opportunity within the scene to suddenly sit there mid-fuck and go, actually, how do you like this?
Yeah.
Would you like it done like that? Whereas if that was normal sex outside, like vanilla sex outside of like the industry, that's a conversation that you'd have with your partner. You'd be sitting there saying, actually, is this okay? Do you want me to go harder? But we don't have the chance to do that when we've got a dialogue-driven scene.
No.
You know, it's...
No, and like, it's one extra thing just you have to concentrate on and think about is am I doing it the way they want me to. That's one more thing in like a normal circumstance when you're not juggling 50 different things to do. That's not hard. But when you're trying to stay hard for a scene, when you're trying to focus on getting the angles and positions correct for the camera, you're trying to deal with the producer that's breathing down your neck. You've got all of these different lines to remember. It's one extra little thing to add to that massive pile of things that you've got to keep in mind. But yeah, by having that discussion though, it completely removes that, and also it makes it feel more personal. Like I like being able to sit and talk to somebody, because with what I do for the Dom stuff and what I do with my personal life, like we have those discussions, and it's, I think, the importance of being able to sit there and have eye contact and have a laugh with it as well, and have that bit of humour. It stops it from feeling so clinical, stops it from feeling so artificial.
Totally.
It makes it feel like it's well, the one that we did with when we sat down with Ben recently and Chris, and we were sat there all on the sofa having a laugh, having a joke, having some banter, like all cracking jokes, like me and Ben like poking each other. And yeah, it's a really serious situation because we're going through the really important parameters, but it's also fun, and that makes you feel more comfortable with all of it.
You know, it's like that's what I want to do on my sets. I want it to. I don't like calling it a content discussion, but I do, because there's not really a better word. I prefer content chat, to be honest. We do have girls to meet. You know, I like to have somebody. Another big thing for me as well is like I try to have somebody who's not performing in the scene lead the discussion. Like a lot of my sets I run myself. It's my production. I'm the one who's like written the scene, booked everybody. But because I also perform, I don't want a situation where you maybe don't want to kiss me in the scene for whatever reason. That's your prerogative. But I don't want a situation where you might be sat there thinking, I don't really want to kiss Lana, but I don't want to have to tell her that. She's offended. I'd much rather have a third party who's outside of the scene, has no personal investment whatsoever, and they're the person who's in charge of making sure these questions are being asked. And also, it's nice to have, when we're all answering, with any discussion, even outside this kind of thing, you kind of need like a facilitator for discussion, because we're 3 or more noisy porn stars. We're going to talk over each other. We're going to get sidetracked. We have a lot of cool stories between us, and we kind of need someone to be like, right, guys, let's get back on board. Like, how do you feel about this? And that's another big thing for me, is like I like open questions. I don't like it to be a case of, do you do this, yes or no? It's, how do you feel about this? And I feel like that's a much better way of phrasing it, because there's certain things for me where, like choking, for example, I don't mind being choked if it's done safely. But if it's a yes or no, I don't usually get an opportunity to say to the other performer, well, do you know how to choke safely? And so if somebody says to me, how do you feel about choking? I can say, well, yeah, if it's done safely, which then leads to a discussion of what safe choking looks like. And you know what you were saying before as well, like you've got a billion and one things going on in your head. It's the same on the other. Somebody's just on the live. I'm Lana. Hi. It's the same on my end of like, if I'm laid there thinking, right, okay, we're doing a bit of choking. Oh shit, I didn't ask him about how he plans on choking me, or if it's spanking, I didn't ask him about this. And so then my guard's up, and I'm spending the entire scene thinking, but what if he does it in a way I don't like, and I'm going to have to suddenly stop and step in, and I'm sort of, you're on guard watching out for my reactions, I'm on guard watching out for your reactions, when really we could get a lot of that out of the way. I mean, like you said before, like we're both still going to be trying to read each other's body language and things like that, because that's just being responsible, but we can take some of that weight off of it.
Take a bit of that stress away.
Exactly.